I am Jon Sicotte, executive editor of the Brewer Magazine. Welcome to another edition of the Brewer Magazine podcast. We are sponsored by Keg Logistics, and you can check that out at keglogistics.com/brewermag. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the Brewer Magazine podcast, either on YouTube or Spotify. And of course, you can find us at brewermag.com. Well, today we're tapping into a topic that pretty much affects every brewery in the country. It's the ever-evolving hop landscape. Now, over the past several years, hop buying has become pretty difficult sometimes and undergone a dramatic shift from the post-COVID demand fluctuations to even having climate change-driven crop changes. You know, the brewers like you are navigating in a world where hops are no longer really a guaranteed constant. And at the same time, there's a lot of great new hop products. And we've talked about some of these before here on the podcast, offering some exciting new options if you're willing to try to experiment. Well, to unpack it all, got a chance to talk with Kat Hess, who's the head brewer at Wynkoop Brewing in Denver. And she has her finger on the pulse of a lot of these changes and is doing a lot of stuff with some of this experimental stuff, along with understanding all the changes that are happening in hops when it comes to whether you're buying on spot, whether you're buying on contract. And she's going to share how her team's adapting to all of this: hop purchasing, recipe formulation, a sourcing strategy in real time, and how that works. She's also going to walk us through the business side of these changes, talking about cost management, collaborating with growers, and trying all those new formats like oils and extracts. So let's talk to Kat here. This Brewer Mag podcast is sponsored by Keg Logistics. Now's the perfect time to review your keg management strategy. Whether you're seeking a truly flexible keg rental program or intrigued by the seamless distribution freedom of paper fill, Keg Logistics is ready to craft a personalized solution for you, ensuring you receive the kegs you need precisely when you need them. For details, visit keglogistics.com/brewermag. Keg Logistics, modern solutions for keg efficiency. And we welcome in Kat Hess at Wynkoop Brewing. Thanks for joining us here on the Brewer Magazine podcast, Kat.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Awesome. Well, you know, it's a few weeks away from being at Indianapolis for the Craft Brewers Conference. I know you were there. You know, what was your impressions of the overall thing? Why'd you go? Like, was it there for education? Were you there shopping? Like, what got you to CBC and what'd you get out of it?
I wish I was shopping. My purse strings are quite that big this year. No, mostly for education and also for networking. It's just great to meet up with friends from the industry that might be the only time of the year that I see them. And I'm super big into continuing education, and CBC is such a great way to just talk about different things, learn things that, you know, maybe I'm not thinking about, not hearing about. Yeah, it's all good.
Get anything? What was your favorite seminar?
Ooh, I really like the seminar on imparting different flavors into your beer and not just using it from like an extract standpoint, some other like fun ingredients. I also love some of the hop talks that I went to. I'm a big hop head. So learning more about different hops that are coming in the market, different flowables, how that's kind of revolutionizing the industry. Really interested in that type of stuff. So yeah. It was great to get more information on that.
And that's what we're here to talk about is hops. You know, I know that you seem to be, again, a hop head into it. Hops are a very interesting topic right now, and it kind of has been over the years just because of either new varietals coming in, old varietals that aren't getting used, things are getting taken out of the ground. You're having to talk to your, you know, suppliers, your vendors. If you know farmers, it's important. You know, from your vantage point, how has even beer sales changed the way that hop purchasing works for a brewery? And, you know, how have you seen that change over the years?
Oh, I think it's changed quite a bit, especially with the rise of so many imported hops. That seems to be the new thing. It's what the customers want. When you're contracting for maybe some more of those, I guess now considered old school styles, and now you have to pivot to maybe buying spot, changing your budget to make sure that you're providing what the customer wants, and then looking at maybe I need to look at changing my contract and contracting something different. Yeah, that's definitely been a big change and something that we've been talking about for the last couple of years here. Just seeing where the industry is going, what our needs are, and also like just how much we're selling. I feel like the industry as a whole is kind of in a tough spot, and so it can be a little bit difficult having those conversations sometimes with, hey, I know that maybe we're not selling as much, but we need to pivot and we need to change what we're looking at from a contract standpoint with your corporate office, and having them understand like we need to keep up with the trends in the marketplace.
Sure, absolutely. And you came in to Wynkoop, probably there was hop contracts already on the table. How are things adjusting for you? Like, I mean, what have you looked at? What do you like that you guys are doing? Or, kind of what are those shifts that in those conversations that you're having to have since you've taken over?
So right before I took over, the previous brewer, bless him, was able to kind of wrap up the contracts that we had on the books. So as of right now, the only contract that I have is for saws, mainly because we use that in 5 to 6 of our flagships. We're actually transitioning one of our flagships over to that, and that was a good conversation to have, to kind of enlighten some of my managers who don't really quite understand everything about the brewing process, why it's such a big deal to have contracts on some of those German and Czech style hops, just because of how much climate change has impacted the ability for them to grow. And they're still fairly popular hops, and you have a lot of competition to get the right lot, get the best lot, get the amount that you need. So just being able to explain to them why it was important to have that on contract, maybe versus something else, especially when we have a lot of other hops and they're like, oh, why can't we just use that? It's like, no, it's not quite how it works. You got to make sure that you keep that product consistent, and switching all of your flagships over to maybe a different hop that we have in house could totally change the taste of the beer, could change the price of the beer, and you want to keep our customers happy. So.
Yeah. Yeah. And what are some of those conversations you've had, either, as like you said, talking with management or getting to know your hop suppliers, your hop growers, when it comes to things like surplus or shrinking acreage, what are you seeing that is impacting exactly what you're doing, either availability or pricing, and how are you adjusting to it?
Oh, yeah. There's a couple of hops that we use that you're seeing some of that acreage shrink. And so talking about maybe looking at doing contract for that again, where we might not have done that for a couple of years because easy to buy it on spot. It's like, hey, I want to make sure that I get the best quality product, and maybe I don't necessarily get it for cheaper, but I know that I have it, and I know that I'm getting consistent quality across the board, and being able to talk with my hop suppliers about, okay, what are you seeing? What's shrinking? What's growing? What do we need to be keeping in mind from a consistency standpoint, and then being able to go back and talk to my management team and say, hey, this is directly what I'm getting from boots on the ground. This is why, here's the data for why we need to make some of these decisions. And want to be able to show them the data and see that, okay, from a consistency, a quality standpoint, and also sometimes from a price standpoint, that even though a lot of brewers in the last couple of years have kind of shied away from contracts, that I feel like we're kind of seeing that shift as an industry to some of those hops that you're seeing those acreage shrink.
Yeah, I mean, I've always taught, and I've been doing this for a decade now, how important it is to have those contracts, because it's telling the farmers where things are going. Are we in such a flux right now that it is hard to tell people where we're going because things change so quickly? Or is it on the breweries to be able to say, you know what, we need to secure our future by showing what needs to be purchased and where we're going? Maybe things are going too fast when it comes to hop usage.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's a little bit of both. I think there's a lot of uncertainty from the farmer standpoint, because us brewers are changing our minds on what we want, what the consumer is telling us, what we personally like to brew with, how we like to brew. I think brewers are gun shy at signing contracts because so many people overcontracted. We personally overcontracted because we were told, gosh, this is long before my time, that we were going to have exponential growth from say 2,500 barrels a year to 8,000 or 9,000. That didn't quite happen because another sister brewer that was part of our company was sold off. So that definitely kind of changed things. So I think people from an overcontracting standpoint are like, oh, I don't know that I want to do that. But now that we're seeing, hey, we're sending this message now for several years to farmers, we're not going to contract, we're not going to buy those hops, we're just going to buy spot. And they're like, hey, why would we continue to give acreage to this if we're not selling it? And now it's kind of going the other way, where brewers are a little freaked out that hey, I don't have the hops that I need. And farmers are like, well, you didn't want to buy them. So I think it's really important for us to be talking closely as an industry, not just brewer to brewer, but brewer to supplier on what is it that we need, what do we like, and what do we want to make sure that we have for years to come.
And I think a lot of times people get gun shy, especially smaller breweries, maybe just coming into it, or they are already wearing 9 hats that they don't think that they have the time, and they're just like, but when should a brewery start having conversations? I mean, is there a barrelage size, how much you're putting out, how much you're, hop wise, how much you're using? Who should be talking to hop suppliers beyond that, or hop growers, or or looking locally? I mean, what is the important keys for a brewery, and when should you start with this and not just be depending on just someone that you're working with, like a broker or something like that?
I mean, I feel like you should be starting those conversations pretty early on into opening, and potentially even before you open, especially if you know that you're going to be a brewery that is very hop heavy, whether you're doing IPAs or maybe you're doing a lot of lagers that you need hops from overseas that you can't easily get here. I think it's really important to keep in mind that you can secure your future, you can get better pricing if you're having those conversations. And maybe you're not quite ready to pull the trigger if you're, say, 400 or 500 barrels a year, but you might get up to 1,000 and you're like, oh, wow, I'm constantly scrounging for hops. Already having those relationships in place, I think, is really helpful. And plus, if you're talking to growers, you're talking to brokers, you're getting real-time information on what is happening in the marketplace. And if you're just doing spot here and there, you're not really looking into that, you might get sticker shock, or you might go to buy something and you realize that I just can't get that anymore. And then what are you going to do if that's a beer that is selling really well? Maybe it's a beer you didn't intend to be a flagship, now it's flagship, or maybe it's your flagship beer that you're just kind of in a bind. I think the sooner that you can have those conversations, the better, and just keep those lines of communication open. Whether you're ready to pull the trigger on that or not, at least you have that relationship in place. So when you get to that point, you say, okay, this is a good business decision for me. Let's do it.
And you kind of touched a little bit of just about the way that hops have been growing lately. I mean, that is a big change too. Climate change, weather-related shifts. I mean, just even a few years ago, the fires were affecting, you get smoke damaged hops. How is that affecting the quality and characteristics of maybe hops that even you have been working at sourcing? What should people be looking for, and when do those real conversations happen where it's like, I can't take this. It's not a good quality hop. I mean, how do you have those discussions, and how has weather affected, what is going forward?
Yeah, I've definitely seen some effects of that. And one of the things that I found that's worked really well is asking your suppliers for a sample of that before you pull the trigger. If you're working with a good supplier, or you're working with a good grower, they want your business. They want to make sure that you have all the information that you can to make that right decision. And I have yet to have somebody say, no, we're not going to send you a sample. So, maybe not necessarily enough to do a full batch, but at least to be able to do a hop cell, maybe a steep, do a rub, work with that with your team, pull some other people in, get their sensory analysis, and then be able to make that decision from there as to whether you want to use that or not. And maybe you find, hey, maybe there's a little bit, like for the smoke damage in particular, maybe there's a little bit here, but we can use that maybe in a different way, or kind of shift around when we're adding these hops. Or you might find, hey, like, I just can't do that. I still want this hop, but I need another lot, and being able to work with them. And if, like I said, if you're working with a good supplier, they're going to make sure that you get what it is that you're looking for. And if they don't, then maybe you need to be looking for somebody else. Sure. But it's definitely been, it can be a challenge sometimes when you're trying to find that right lot, that right flavor, that right profile. And the weather has other plans. And yeah, sometimes you might think, hey, this is going to be the year, it's going to be great, it's awesome. And then, catastrophe strikes. And I feel bad for the farmers because, they're doing everything that they can, but sometimes, can't control Mother Nature. And sometimes you just got to kind of have to pivot and work with it. I feel like a lot of what you're seeing from like the resins and the flowable side, I think that's been really helpful to provide consistent quality, like shelf stable products for a lot of them, that you don't have some of the same concerns that you do with maybe, pellets or whole leaf.
Sure.
So that's another way that you can kind of look at mitigating that.
Yeah, how have you incorporated things like extracts and hop oils into your process, and how, are they something that you see as a full substitute, be able to boost something, be able to adjust pieces? I mean, how is that kind of been a part of going forward? The innovation is there to help you. I mean, how are you adjusting with it?
Yeah, so I really like a lot of the more like cold side flowables more so than the hot side, just because we're not at a production level that I necessarily need to replace pellets from like an alpha acid standpoint. I did do that at previous production breweries, which was super helpful, really great for the yield. But I really like being able to pick and choose specific flavors that I want from a beer, and being able to know that I'm going to get that true to flavor in that flowable, or maybe I want to style that I'm not going to get the yield if I just throw a bunch of pellets in there. So being able to do maybe 50-50, 60-40, kind of just depends on which flowable it is that we're using. That's been really great to get better yields, and also just give our customers what they want and being able to like really nail those flavor profiles that we're going for.
Nice. What do you like when it comes to, like, are you looking for aroma? Are you looking for flavors? And when it comes to flowables, being able to use them, what is the best advantage of them, and what are their limitations that you have found? This Brewer Mag podcast is sponsored by Keg Logistics. Now's the perfect time to review your keg management strategy. Whether you're seeking a truly flexible keg rental program or intrigued by the seamless distribution freedom of paper fill, Keg Logistics is ready to craft a personalized solution for you, ensuring you receive the kegs you need precisely when you need them. For details, visit keglogistics.com/brewermag. Keg Logistics, modern solutions for keg efficiency.
I would say I think I personally use them more for aroma than for flavor, since I'm not doing 100% replacement. So I feel like I'm still getting a pretty good amount of flavor from those hops. And there is something to be said about having that vegetal matter in the beer, being able to extract flavors from that you might not be able to get in an extract flowable situation. But I find that from an aroma standpoint, that's been really helpful for us to be able to pick out and say, I want to make sure that I get this flavor. And I think sometimes with other, like say like baking extracts, they can come across as a little too chemical, for lack of a better term. And I'm super sensitive to that. So I want to make sure that if we're trying to go for a particular fruit flavor, say, being able to use that and get that fruit flavor from the hop side of things versus using like an extract, a traditional extract, we just get better quality product all around.
Do you see yourself working on a consistency issue when you're having, like, let's say every year hops are changing, like you said, you have contracts in there, they're never going to be the same product, which a lot of times consumers don't seem to understand that. Brewers do. They understand that there's constant adjustment and pivoting on the back end. How have you had to go through to consistently make the same product but have to be making changes on the back end? What are some of the things that just personally that you've had to do when it comes to being able to work with different hop products?
So a lot of the times what we'll do is we'll do a smaller batch, same grain bill, but we'll do different hops or different hop strategies, different hop products, and name it something completely different. Have it on tap at the same time as the beer. So usually like the flagship as a beer that we're trying to change, and just kind of see what our customers are saying, what our team is saying. Maybe have some brewer friends come in, see what they're thinking, and just getting that feedback and being able to see, okay, maybe we hit the mark in this area, but we didn't hit the mark in that area. And to wow, I cannot speak. The test batches have been, I think, really helpful for us to be able to make those changes without just going straight at it from all right, we're just going to brew this beer and we're going to see what happens. And then people are surprised when it doesn't taste the same. So
Right.
I think being able to do that, I mean, even if you're just doing it as small as like just a little like bench test trial, you don't have to go full on brewing a full batch of beer. We sell enough beer that we're able to do that, which is really nice. But I feel like there's a lot of small ways that you can do that. I've even sometimes just done a home brew, made sure that I hit all of my numbers and have that just a very small 5-gallon batch on tap and just kind of see like, how does that work? What do we like? What don't we like? And that's been really helpful.
So obviously there's a lot of challenges every single day. You're always looking ahead. You're looking at numbers. You're looking at production costs. How are you finding ways to offset costs so that it's not having to be passed on to consumer and have to add another dollar to a pint? I mean, that is always the fear that if a cost comes to you, you have to pass it on, but then that means probably less volume sold. I mean, what is the balance there?
Honestly, I look at it from the whole of what I have on tap, and having beers that are cheap to produce versus some beers that are expensive. Because I mean, a hazy IPA, there's just no way to slice or dice it. It's going to be expensive no matter what you use, no matter how you approach it. It's just expensive. But maybe that price of the hazy is offset by a larger batch that is half the price. So being able to kind of look at my costs overall and see where can maybe I can't cut the cost in this particular beer because I'm going to sacrifice some quality. Maybe I cut that cost in some other way so that I'm ultimately not having to pass it on to the consumer. And we've also looked at, for certain beer styles, maybe not selling it in a 16 ounce, selling it in a 12 ounce. So that you don't usually get too much pushback when people are seeing that. They're just like, oh, it's the same price. Instead of being like, okay, now it's a $10 pint. People are like, well, I'm not going to pay $10 for a pint. Maybe some places, but at least not here.
When it comes to, you talked about hops and before, let's talk about some new varietals. What are some things that you think are going to become more standard? And I think like we touched on hazies. I mean, I think that's going to become such a standard that we're going to see a growth in new varietals. What are the new varietals maybe in the last 5 years or so that you think are going to be replacing some old varietals? Are there any that you absolutely think these are going to stick around?
I've seen a ton of people using Strata. I love that hop. It is so fantastic. Like a lot of people in this area have been using that pretty consistently. And I feel like in New Zealand, which I'm sure you're hearing that too, Ruaka, Kohatu, Nelson, seeing lots of those, Motueka, I always mispronounce that. Yeah, I feel like if it is a hop from New Zealand, like that is where we're at. And I feel like you're seeing that from some of the American breeding programs as well, that they're trying to emulate some of those same flavors that you get from New Zealand, but here in our climate. I think there's probably still a little bit of work to be done there, but I have a feeling that it'll be coming close. But I think a lot of those hop varietals that really give you that massive burst of like just fresh citrus zest, lots of tropical notes. I just got my hands on some anchovy, which I know a lot of people in West Coast have been using. It hasn't really hit Denver yet, but more people I feel like are starting to like use that because of that amazing watermelon flavor. So I think any of those varietals that are really going to give you that like juice forward flavor, because that's what everybody wants right now. Especially if you can showcase them in like a hoppy Pilsner. I love that Pilsners are coming back. I cannot tell you. I'm so excited.
And that's true. Hoppy Pilsners seem to be that next stage that they've kind of been around, but I think it's that classic bringing in the other consumers, but still bringing in something that the craft beer aficionados really want. Have you, how much are you going into, diving into things like that with hoppy Pilsners? Because it is that kind of that new foreground to be able to, especially when technology, more people have the lagering abilities on smaller scales. Do you see that going forward a lot more?
Oh yeah, definitely. I feel like just in general, our lager production has gone up quite a bit in the last couple of years. So we always have a Helles. We always have a West Coast Pilsner. That was like our first foray into hoppy Pilsners. Let's see, a Helles, a West Coast Pilsner, a Mexican lager. We just brewed a New Zealand Pilsner last week. We're going to be doing like a New Zealand like XPA coming up. We're talking about maybe doing a French Pilsner using some like French Pilsner malt, maybe doing that a little on the hoppy side. But I feel like in the same ways that like when hazies kind of started to become a thing, you went to a brewery and like suddenly everybody had a hazy. I feel like that's kind of what you see now, is that everybody has some type of hoppy Pilsner, whether it's West Coast, New Zealand, Italian, it's out there. And I want to make sure that we're keeping up with that. And it's a fun style to brew. And I feel like it's an easy way to showcase some of these newer hops without having like a super malty backbone that you would get from maybe some other like IPA styles.
Sure. Is there an older hop that is being underutilized that you still love and are afraid to see it going away because maybe these new hop varieties are coming in? Is there something that still, needs to be out there, or like you want something that is like what that you started with that you want to see come back?
I like a lot of the C hops. Cascade and Centennial are two of my favorites. And I feel like a Centennial in particular is like kind of old school. I mean, thank God for Bell's Two Hearted. Love that they're like rocking with that. Keep doing your thing. But yeah, you don't see a lot of people using those anymore. They're getting a little more scarce. So, but I love those. I just feel like they have a lot of flavor. They're a lot of fun. They're really easy to work with. I also kind of like the piney side of things. So Centennial has a special place in my heart since you get some of those like piney woodsy flavors.
Yeah. How are you planning your hop sourcing for the next few years? There's, so many different changes. You've talked about hop contracting. Do you think it needs to be, scale down the amount of hops that you guys are using in your arsenal with spot buys here and there, or is it a lot of hop contracts going forward? Like, how are you planning for the future and talking to your management team?
So I'd like to contract a couple more hops that we're using a lot of, mainly because we brew so many hoppy styles of beer still. So I'm looking at that, but maybe not looking at it just from like a pellet standpoint, maybe looking at some portion of like pellets and flowables. And I will say that I think that a lot of hop brokers have been really listening to the feedback from brewers that we cannot commit to these massive contracts. So that makes it a lot easier for us to be able to go to our management teams if we're not the ones that ultimately have to say in that and say, hey, maybe before we were working with this company and we had to contract, 500 or 600 pounds of hops. Well, that's not realistic for how much we're brewing, but maybe we can contract 200, maybe we can contract 150, and some of it can be pellets, some can be different form. Looking at some of those options. So I would say I'd like to have maybe like 30 to 40%, maybe probably closer to 30% under contract for the next couple of years. And then still give myself that wiggle room to do spot, give myself an opportunity to try some new things. And maybe you find a hop that you fall in love with that, okay, maybe this is something that we contract. If we're buying spot for the next 2 years on this, probably something that we should look at contracting. So.
Sure. You kind of mentioned some of the beers that you guys are working on, but is there anything going on at Wynkoop that you're really excited to do beer wise, making something that you haven't, or something you're looking forward to that you haven't made in a while that you're bringing back?
I mean, the New Zealand pills are the thing that I'm super excited about, just because I've never made one of those before, and we use some fun hops in that. So I think that's going to be great. That should be hitting the taps probably late June, I would say. And we're about to throw our barley wine into some barrels. So it's been a while since Wynkoop's done any barrel projects. So very excited about that. Trying to think of what else. I feel really lucky that we've been around for 37 years. So I have a lot of brew logs and a lot of fun history and a lot of amazing brews that have been through here. And so one of my favorite things to do is just kind of dig through the archives and see what did we brew in the past that we can bring back. So last year we actually brewed Russell Scherer's Märzen, which was a huge success. So we might be digging into the archives to brew one of his fruit beers. It's crazy to me that he was brewing a fruit beer in 1988. Nobody was doing that. Yeah. So, yeah.
Very neat. Well, awesome. Well, it's been good talking to you, but I always like wrapping things up. We'll get to know you a little bit, just some fun, goofy ones. You ready for these?
Okay. All right.
All right. What's your favorite part of your brew day besides making the beer?
Ooh, okay. I'm going to sound super weird, but I love cellaring. I love to clean. I love things being clean. So if I get to scrub a floor or scrub a tank or polish a tank, if it's clean, that makes me so happy.
Awesome. Was there a job you applied for and didn't get, and you're still brokenhearted about it to this day?
Ooh. No, not really. I feel like I've been really lucky that the jobs that I've really wanted, I've been able to get. Knock on wood.
Well, and then what about, let's go off what's your favorite to go fast food order? Whether it's the drive-through or wherever you need to be, you got to grab something fast. Where do you got to go, and what are you going to get?
Ooh, I'm a Chick-fil-A girl. Spicy Chick-fil-A sandwich with Polynesian sauce and a diet lemonade.
There
Every
you
time.
go. Nice. Well, awesome, Kat. It's been great talking to you about hops, talking to you about food, talking about beer. We
Great.
appreciate having you here on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. It was awesome.
This Brewer Mag podcast is sponsored by Keg Logistics. Now's the perfect time to review your keg management strategy. Whether you're seeking a truly flexible keg rental program or intrigued by the seamless distribution freedom of paper fill, Keg Logistics is ready to craft a personalized solution for you, ensuring you receive the kegs you need precisely when you need them. For details, visit keglogistics.com/brewermag. Keg Logistics, modern solutions for keg efficiency.